into a wealthy family from Thebes and a lifelong friend of Epaminondas, Pelopidas was a man who concerned himself with the livelihood and liberty of his fellow citizens. Since the end of the Peloponnesian War in 404 BC, the Spartans had most of Greece under its tyrannical control. In 382, the Spartans captured the main citadel of Thebes and outlawed several members of the nobility. An effort to liberate the city was organized, and Pelopidas led the charge. Under the cover of darkness, he and several allies eliminated top Spartan leaders within the city before calling on Athens to aid their plight. For his efforts, he was awarded the title of Boeotarch, the war leader of the Boeotia region. Throughout the 370s, Pelopidas led the Thebans around the country and engaged in guerrilla warfare against the Spartans. Among the most notable actions were the battles of Tigera and Leuctra, where the Thebans delivered embarrassing defeats to the Spartans despite being outnumbered and outmatched. These actions brought glory and honor to Pelopidas and Epaminondas, whom the Greeks followed willingly, considering the two men as saviors of the ancient world. The 360s saw Pelopidas having to deal with Alexander of Pherae, who ruled the region of Thessaly as a tyrant. During his second visit to Thessaly, Alexander captured Pelopidas and held him prisoner until an army led by Epaminondas persuaded the tyrant to release him. Though peace was declared, Plutarch notes how Alexander relapsed into his old ways, forcing the Thebans to meet his Thessalonian army at Cynocephalae in 364 BC. In this battle, Pelopidas lost his restraint and charged Alexander personally at the expense of his own life. The loss of Thebes' savior devastated both sides, but the Thebans were motivated to see that Alexander restored the cities of Thessaly and vowed to aid Thebes in any future war. Years later, Alexander himself was killed due to familial troubles. No more would the old Greek powers of Athens, Sparta, or Thebes rise to prominence, and Macedonia would soon overshadow them through the leadership of their kings, Philip II and Alexander the Great. And now we shall turn our attention to his Roman counterpart. The account of Marcus Claudius Marcellus mostly covers his military exploits over the last 20 years of his life. Though he was reserved and fond of Greek culture as a young man, his drive for war and his excellence in singles combat made him stand out from the other Roman youth. Having served in the legions during the First Punic War, Marcellus rose to consular rank in 222 BC and led the Romans against the Celts and the Gauls during the Gallic War. Plutarch details a famous encounter between Marcellus and the Gallic king, where the two men charged each other and Marcellus emerged victorious. His claim to the king's armor and his prayer to Jupiter marked him as the third Roman leader in history to defeat an enemy leader in combat, earning him the Spolia Opima. Several years later, Hannibal of Carthage began wreaking havoc in Italy, beginning the Second Punic War in 217 BC. Though he had spent time away from public life, Marcellus returned to service and joined Fabius Maximus Verrucosus in serving as joint consuls to Rome in 215 and 214. Their strategy for warring against Hannibal earned them their nicknames, the Sword of Rome and the Shield of Rome, respectively. The most notable action of Marcellus was his victory over the kingdom of Syracuse in Sicily. Syracuse had come under Carthaginian control once again, and the Romans waged a 2-year siege to keep the island from rising against them. The final victory in 212 BC witnessed the death of the renowned scientist Archimedes, an act greatly regretted by Marcellus. The remainder of Plutarch's account details how Marcellus earned his last 2 consulships and continued his regular skirmishing against Hannibal in Italy. During his 5th consulship in 208 BC, Marcellus and his political partner Titus Crispinus were ambushed by the Carthaginians during a scouting mission in Venusia. Both consuls were killed in this action, and Hannibal himself made a trip to see Marcellus's body and give honor to his former foe. He even attempted to send an urn carrying Marcellus's bones back to his son, but was unsuccessful. Rome would eventually win the Second Punic War in 202 BC at the Battle of Zama, and Carthage would suffer greatly as a result.